A kind nurse helped a stranger in. The rain then found out who he really was. "Sir, it's freezing out. Here, let me take you inside." The voice cut through the roar of the storm like a lighthouse through fog. Emma stood in the pouring rain, her long blonde hair clinging to her pale cheeks. She was soaked through despite the umbrella she held overhead. Her nurse's uniform was damp, the hem stained with puddle water, and her hands trembled from the cold. Yet her eyes, ocean blue and unwavering, were full of concern. "No, I just need to rest, please." The man under the awning barely lifted his head. His voice was ragged, almost a whisper, and each word seemed to drain him further. Emma crouched down beside him. "You will get pneumonia out here. At the least, let me get you a blanket." "I work here," she gestured to the entrance of the hospital behind them. "Let me help." He did not respond, but she saw his lips twitch slightly, maybe from pain, maybe from hesitation. Without waiting, Emma stood and gently placed her hand on his shoulder. She could feel him trembling beneath the layers of his soaked, threadbare coat. 5 minutes later, she was guiding him through the hospital's staff entrance. The storm raged outside, casting streaks of lightning against the tall glass windows. Inside, the night shift moved like quiet ghosts in the fluorescent-lit corridors. But no one questioned her as she led the stranger toward a small, unused on-call room near the janitor's supply closet. She brought him a towel, a dry hospital gown, and a paper cup of warm tea from the break room. "You can rest here for the night," she said, arranging a pillow on the narrow cot. "I will talk to admin tomorrow. Maybe they can find you a temp job cleaning. It is not much, but it is warm, and it is something." The man nodded, silently. His face, though gaunt, was angular and clean-shaven. His eyes were sharp and oddly intelligent, scanning the room in subtle sweeps before settling back on her. "Thank you, Emma," he murmured, reading her name tag. "You are welcome," she replied, smiling softly. "What is your name?" He hesitated. "Liam." "Okay." "Liam. Try to rest. You are safe here." As Emma left the room, she cast one last glance over her shoulder. Liam was sitting upright, staring blankly at the wall, the tea untouched in his hands. Something about him did not sit quite right. It wasn't threatening, but it was strange. He did not move like someone beaten down by life. His posture was too straight, his gaze too focused. The next morning, Liam was waiting outside the janitor's office. He was freshly dressed in scrubs and holding a mop bucket. Emma spotted him on her way in and smiled. "Looks like you are part of the team now." He gave a small nod. "Thanks to you." The days passed quietly, and Liam slipped into his new role without much fuss. He mopped floors, emptied trash, and kept to himself. Most of the staff ignored him, but he noticed everything. The way the nurses took their breaks, the location of each medication storage room, and the way delivery trucks arrived late at night, signed in by the director himself. Emma noticed something else. The way Liam moved, he was too coordinated for someone who had supposedly been on the streets. His hands were clean, his nail clipped short. And when he thought no one was watching, he walked with purpose, his head high, his steps confident. Once she caught him staring at the hospital's floor plan mounted on the wall near the fire exit. His eyes were scanning it for too long for someone who was merely lost. Still, she said nothing. One evening, while walking past the break room, Emma saw Liam wiping the counters meticulously, aligning the chairs perfectly. He looked up, met her eyes, and for a brief second, something flickered in his gaze. Guilt, perhaps, or recognition. "You do not have to clean in here," she said gently. "I know," he replied, his voice calm. "I like to keep things in order." She tilted her head. "You are not who you seem, are you?" He froze, the cloth in his hand paused mid-wipe. Emma smiled faintly. "Don't worry. Everyone here has a story. I just hope yours has a happy ending." She walked away before he could respond, leaving Liam standing in silence. He stared at the reflection of his face in the break room window. The storm was now a memory behind glass. Outside, the rain had stopped, but inside something had just begun. He was not always a janitor, and certainly not a drifter. Liam Prescott had grown up in a mansion overlooking the Connecticut shoreline. It was a place where the smell of the sea mixed with old money and boardroom ambition. The only son of the Prescott family, a dynasty of pharmaceutical power players, he was expected to inherit the empire his grandfather built. It was an empire built on profit, margins, research patents, and ruthless acquisition. But Liam walked away. After graduating from Harvard with dual degrees in bioethics and investigative law, he renounced his inheritance. He stepped into a world his family had tried to hide from him. A world of forgotten patience, exploited systems, and lives lost to corporate greed. He became a silent operative, working with a private, anonymous agency that exposed fraud and corruption in the medical industry. He had been off the grid for 3 years when she found him. Mrs. Calhoun was not what he expected. No press, no lawsuit, just a mother, with a photo album and a broken voice. She was only 26, a nurse like the girl at your hospital, she said, sliding the picture across the diner table. Her hands trembled, the corners of her nails chewed raw. Healthy, bright, took a new medication for a post-op infection. 3 days later, she was gone. Liam studied the file she brought. The medication's batch number had been erased from the hospital records. The attending physician's statement was contradictory. The autopsy results were vague. There was something rotten beneath it all, and she knew it. But no one listens, Mrs. Calhoun whispered. They call it a complication. I call it a cover-up. Liam stared at her, feeling the weight in her voice. He had seen enough corruption to recognize its stench. Still, something about this woman made it personal. Perhaps it was the way she gripped her daughter's photo to her chest, as if it could breathe again. Or maybe it was the way she looked at him, not as a whistleblower, but as a last hope. Help me, she begged. Please, if this happened to my baby, it will happen again. He nodded slowly. I'll find out the truth. I promise. That was 2 weeks ago. Now, Liam was mopping sterile floors under flickering lights, wearing a name tag that said Tom Hayes and a past that no one questioned. The hospital had layers. On the surface, it was clean and orderly. But behind the surgical masks and computer terminals, Liam had already noticed red flags, inventory discrepancies, off-the-record prescriptions, and, most alarmingly, the name of the drug that killed Mrs. Calhoun's daughter showing up again under different aliases. He kept notes in a small, waterproof notebook hidden inside a hollowed-out cleaning spray bottle. Every shift he gathered more data, but he needed to get deeper, higher. And for that, he had targeted someone. Emma. The moment she brought him in from the rain, something had shifted. He had expected protocol, cold hands and distant eyes. Instead, she gave him warmth, a blanket, a job, a name. And he hated himself for it. She was exactly the kind of person the system devoured. Compassionate, overworked, underpaid, and too kind for her own good. She did not just treat patients, she noticed them. She knew which old man needed extra sugar in his tea, which child liked the elephant stickers after injections, and which nurses had trouble sleeping on the night shift. She was golden, and she was the key. His investigation plan had her listed as a primary relational access point. It was a cold, clinical term for someone to get close to for inside information. He had even rehearsed scenarios for winning her trust. But now, every time she smiled at him, offered him coffee, or gave him an encouraging word, he felt it crack something inside his armor. One night after she lent him her locker combination so he could change clothes faster, he stood in front of the small mirror inside. He was staring at her photo taped to the corner, probably from a staff birthday party, her cheeks flushed with laughter. A note was scribbled beside it. Kindness costs nothing, but it changes everything. He slammed the locker shut. A crisis of conscience surged through him. Emma was not supposed to matter. She was supposed to be a means to an end. But now she was the one person he could not stand to lie to. And yet, lying was all he had left. The days blurred together in the soft hum of hospital life. The beeping monitors, the shuffle of nurses' shoes, and the occasional quiet sob echoing down sterile hallways. In this subdued chaos, Emma and Liam found their rhythm. Emma was patient with him. She showed him how to sanitize the equipment carts properly, how to fold the towels the way the senior nurses liked, and where to sneak a break without getting caught. She never treated him like he was less than her. Not once. "See this closet?" she whispered one afternoon, pulling him aside. "Best vending machine on the 3rd floor. The coffee is terrible, but the granola bars are magic." They shared a laugh, and for a moment Liam forgot why he was really there. Sometimes they had lunch in the cramped staff break room, sitting across from each other with plastic trays and tired eyes. Emma told him about her hometown in Wisconsin, how she used to play piano before her shifts got too long, and about her dream to one day open a hospice for low-income families. Liam mostly listened, nodding and asking questions. But every so often he would drop a comment that surprised her. A reference to a rare medical study or an insight into pharmaceutical supply chains. "You're awfully smart for a janitor," she teased once, raising an eyebrow. He smiled, keeping it vague, had a different life once. There were moments, brief and unspoken, when something stirred between them. Like the night Liam sliced his palm on a cracked mirror in the maintenance hall. He tried to shrug it off, but Emma insisted on cleaning the wound herself. "Sit down," she said, pulling out gauze and antiseptic. "You're not impressing anyone by bleeding quietly." She wrapped his hand gently, her fingers brushing his skin. The warmth lingered longer than it should have. "You always take care of everyone else," he murmured. Emma looked up, startled by the softness in his voice. "It's just what I do." He wanted to say more. He wanted to tell her that it was more than just duty, that she carried kindness like armor. And it was the most disarming thing he had ever seen. But he stayed silent. One night, as he mopped the hallway outside the nurse's station, he heard her voice through the thin door. It was low, strained, almost a whisper. "Yes, Mom. I know. I'll send something by Friday. Just don't skip his meds, okay? I'll figure it out." She paused. "No, don't tell Dad. He's got enough to worry about. I'll cover the copay somehow." Liam stopped, his heart tightening. He had assumed Emma was just kind, just good. He never imagined she was carrying burdens of her own, that behind every smile she offered, the patience was a weight she never spoke of. That night, long after the staff had gone home and the halls were dark, Liam stood before the old donation box near the chapel. He held an envelope in his hand, cash from the emergency fund he kept hidden. It was not part of the mission, it was just his. He slipped the envelope in quietly and filled out the donor slip. "For Nurse Emma, from someone you once made smile." He walked away before anyone could see. The next morning, Emma read the slip posted on the bulletin board and blinked twice. She clutched it in her hands, staring at the simple handwriting. She looked around, her eyes searching the room. Liam was across the hall, pushing a mop, pretending not to notice her. That night, he found her waiting for him in the break room with 2 sandwiches and a warm smile. "You're a good listener," she said, softly, handing him the food. "You always seem to be in the right place at the right time. I'm lucky like that," he said. They sat in silence, eating, the fluorescent light above them flickering just a little. But inside Liam, something had started to fracture. A second crisis was forming. This was not supposed to happen. He was supposed to gather intel, write a report, and disappear. Instead, he found himself watching the way Emma tucked her hair behind her ear or how she bit her lip when concentrating on a chart. He found himself caring, and that terrified him more than anything. It happened on a quiet Tuesday night, the kind of evening when the hospital seemed to hold its breath between emergencies. Emma had stayed late to finish charting and was heading back to the break room when she noticed a strange glow. It was coming from the records office across the hallway. The lights were supposed to be off. Only department heads had access after hours. She approached quietly, her footsteps muffled by the old linoleum floor. Inside, Liam stood hunched over the computer. His janitor's badge was clipped to his pocket, but he moved with the speed and familiarity of someone who had done this before. The monitor displayed a patient file. Not just any file, but one from 6 months ago, marked archived. The name caught her eye. It was the same last name Mrs. Calhoun had once whispered in the waiting room. Emma's heart dropped. "Liam," she said, her voice low but sharp. He flinched. The screen went dark in a flash, his fingers hitting a hidden keystroke without hesitation. He turned slowly, guilt written across every inch of his face. "Can explain," he said. Emma crossed her arms, the walls of trust collapsing brick by brick. "Start explaining now." He took a step forward. "I did not mean to lie to you. I never wanted to involve you. But you did," she snapped. "You lived in our rooms, worked beside us, looked me in the eye, and what? Used me as your way in?" Liam sighed, the weight of the truth settling on his shoulders. "I work for a private agency that investigates medical corruption. Your hospital. Someone is distributing counterfeit medication through your pharmacy. The records I accessed tonight, they're already redacted. Someone is hiding a paper trail." Emma's voice shook. "You pretended to be homeless. You lied about everything." "No," he said quickly. "Not everything. The person I was around you. That was real. Meant it. All of it." She stared at him, pain flashing in her eyes. "You used my kindness for your gain." "I used it," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper, "and I regret it every day since." Silence stretched between them like a canyon. Emma looked away first. Her hands were clenched into fists, trembling. "How long have you been doing this?" she asked, her voice cold. 3 years, Liam replied. "But this time was different. Because of me." "Yes," he said, with no hesitation in his voice. She shook her head, tears forming, but not yet falling. "You should have told me the truth." "Couldn't. If anyone found out what I was doing, the evidence would have disappeared. I was trying to protect the investigation." "And you?" she asked, backing away one step, then another. Her voice cracked. "I trusted you." Liam reached out instinctively, but she turned and walked out. The storm had returned outside. Lightning streaked across the sky as Emma stepped into the rain without a coat, her shoes splashing through puddles. She walked quickly as if distance could dissolve betrayal. Behind her, the hospital doors hissed shut, leaving Liam alone in the corridor. He was drenched not by the rain, but by the shame flooding over him. He watched through the glass as she disappeared into the darkness. And for the first time in years, Liam Prescott, investigator heir, and loner felt truly helpless. She was not just collateral damage. She had become everything. The rain poured as if the sky had split open. It was cold, punishing, and merciless. Yet Liam ran through it coatless, his breath sharp in his chest. He had searched the nurse's dorm, the staff lounge, even the chapel. She was gone, vanished like a light, extinguished too soon. Then he saw her. Across the empty hospital courtyard, Emma stood beneath the bus stop shelter. She had her arms wrapped around herself, her blonde hair soaked, her body trembling. It wasn't from the cold, but from the weight of everything. "Emma!" he shouted, slipping as he crossed the slick pavement. She turned, startled, her face pale and drawn. "What are you doing?" "Here?" Liam stopped a few feet away, drenched and breathless. "I had to find you." "You've said enough," she replied, her voice brittle. "No," he said, stepping closer. "I haven't. Not the things that matter." She folded her arms tighter. "Then say them. But don't expect me to believe anything anymore." He nodded, the rain streaming down his face like tears. "I never meant to fall for you. But the night you pulled me in from the rain, that night changed everything. I wasn't just some guy with a job to do anymore. You saw me when I wasn't pretending, and that terrified me." Emma didn't speak, but she didn't walk away either. Liam continued, his voice cracking. "My mother died when I was 18. Cancer. She trusted a system that failed her. They gave her hope, then took it away piece by piece. After she passed, I watched my father invest in the same companies that made her suffer. That's when I left. I thought if I could just fix something, save someone maybe, I could make peace with her. Memory." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small folded cloth protected inside a waterproof pouch. He unfolded it gently and held it out. It was a white handkerchief, hand-stitched. On the corner, in delicate embroidery, was her name. "Emma, had this made the week after you helped me. I didn't know why at the time. I just knew I wanted to remember the moment someone made me believe again." She took the cloth, slowly, her fingers brushing his. For a moment, neither of them moved. "I know I lied," he said, softly. "I know I used your trust. But what I feel now, this isn't part of any plan. It's real. You're real. And I would trade everything I've ever known to go back and do it right." Emma stared at the handkerchief. Her tears mingled with the rain, but she didn't wipe them away. "I was so angry," she whispered. "Not because you lied, but because I didn't want it to be a lie." Liam stepped forward, his eyes pleading. "Then let me prove it isn't." And in the silence that followed, with the thunder rolling far above, Emma closed the space between them. She wrapped her arms around him. He held her tightly, as if letting go would break the only truth he had left. "I don't forgive you, because it's easy," she said into his shoulder. "I forgive you, because I believe you meant it." And just like that, the rain didn't feel so cold anymore. After that night in the rain, something shifted. The walls between them fell. What remained was a fragile, undeniable alliance. Two people bound not just by emotion, but by a purpose larger than themselves. By day, Liam resumed his janitorial duties, blending into the rhythm of the hospital. By night, he and Emma became shadows, silent, calculated, and relentless. Emma used her nurse's access card to slip Liam into restricted areas, timing their movements between shifts and patient rounds. They spoke in hushed tones, every second a risk. Their first target was the pharmaceutical storage unit. Under the cover of night, Emma swiped her badge and held the door for Liam. Inside, rows of locked cabinets glowed under soft security lights. Liam moved swiftly, snapping high-resolution photos of barcodes, lot numbers, and shipment logs with a discreet mini-camera hidden in a pen. Emma stood watch by the door, her heart pounding at every creak of the floor. "Look," Liam whispered, scrolling through a digital chart on his phone. "They don't match FDA-approved batches. This brand hasn't passed a single compliance test." Emma's breath caught. "You mean patients are being treated with fakes?" "Not just treated," Liam said grimly. "They're being billed full price." Over the next 2 weeks, they dug deeper. Emma intercepted internal memos, printed invoices, and recovered deleted emails from the recycle bin of a forgotten staff terminal. Liam decrypted encrypted files from the hospital director's shared drive, revealing a damning pattern. The director, Dr. Halbrook, was receiving kickbacks from a shadowy pharmaceutical company. He did this in exchange for purchasing counterfeit drugs at reduced prices. The profit margin was pocketed through shell accounts and laundered through hospital donations. This explains the sudden budget surplus, Emma murmured, scanning the report, and the director's new car. They knew they were getting close. Too close. One night, as Emma exited the records room, she felt a chill crawl up her spine. Liam was already waiting in the break room, reviewing data. "We need to act soon," he said, before they catch on. But it was already too late. The next day, Dr. Halbrook summoned Emma to his office. He was calm. Too calm. "Miss Hayes," he began, locking the door behind her. "Interesting choice of late-night activities lately," Emma froze. Her badge. "The surveillance system. I don't know what you're talking about," she said carefully. "Oh, I think you do." He leaned forward, placing a printed photograph on the desk. It was an image of her and Liam entering the pharmaceutical storage unit. "Your friend is not who he says he is. And neither, it seems, are you?" "I was just—" she started, but he raised a hand. "Spare me. Do you realize what you've done? This is theft, trespassing, a violation of patient confidentiality. I should report you both." Emma's heart thundered in her chest. "Then why haven't you?" He smirked. "Because I'm offering you a deal. Stay quiet. Disappear. I'll make sure your license isn't revoked. You'll keep your little job." He walks away. No charges. A clean slate. Emma stared at him, revulsion twisting in her gut. "And if I say no?" His smile faded. "Then I'll bury you both later." That evening, Liam found her in the supply closet, her hands shaking as she relayed everything. "We have to go public," she whispered. "Now." "I agree," Liam said, his voice calm but resolute. "But we need to make it stick. Evidence alone isn't enough. They'll claim it's fabricated." Emma reached into her bag and pulled out a flash drive. "Already sent. I gave a copy to an investigative journalist. They're waiting for confirmation. One email from us and it's front page news." He stared at her, a look of awe on his face. "You're incredible." "I'm angry," she replied, "and I'm tired of people like him getting away with it." The crisis struck fast. The next morning, both Liam and Emma were escorted from the premises. Security cited an ongoing investigation and gross misconduct. Emma was stripped of her badge. Liam was told he'd be facing legal action for identity fraud. But they walked out with their heads held high, because 30 minutes later, every major local news outlet received the story. Front page headlines blared, "Hospital director implicated in counterfeit drug scheme. Internal. Whistleblower provides evidence." Photos, documents, transaction, trails, and patient testimonies began to surface. Former employees stepped forward. The media storm was swift and unforgiving. By noon, the hospital board suspended Dr. Halbrook indefinitely. By nightfall, law enforcement raided his office. Emma sat beside Liam in a quiet diner off 7th Street, watching the story unfold on a muted TV behind the counter. She clutched his hand. "You did it," she whispered. He shook his head. "No, we did." And for the first time, the truth felt like a beginning, not an end. The story exploded across every major network. Reporters camped outside the hospital gates. Camera crews followed staff members to their cars. Headlines screamed of corruption, negligence, and betrayal. But at the heart of it all were two unlikely whistleblowers, an undercover investigator and a nurse with a conscience. Liam sat before a panel of federal agents, his expression calm but resolute. He handed over flash drive, binders, and decrypted files. Each document was a brick in the wall of evidence that proved Dr. Halbrook's scheme. The names of the companies, the offshore accounts, the altered medical records. This wasn't just theft, Liam said during a live interview with a national news anchor. This was murder dressed up as medicine. People trusted this system with their lives, and some never got them back. Across town, Emma stood inside a packed courtroom, her hands folded tightly in her lap. She had been called to testify as a key witness in the trial against the hospital director. The room was silent as she approached the stand. She looked directly at the jury. "I remember the night Mrs. Calhoun came in," she began, her voice steady despite the weight of her grief. Her daughter had just died. She sat alone in the hallway for hours, clutching a photo, rocking back and forth. She wasn't loud. She didn't scream. She just broke. Emma paused, her voice faltering for a moment, and I told myself it was just a tragedy, that we'd done everything we could, but now I know we didn't, and I can't be silent anymore. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Dr. Halbrook, seated across the room with his lawyers, stared blankly ahead, the mask of control finally cracking. The prosecution's evidence painted a damning picture. Falsified drug purchases, laundered money, complicit administrators. Testimonies from former employees and patient families only deepened the blow. The verdict came swiftly. Guilty. Dr. Halbrook was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison for fraud, conspiracy, and reckless endangerment. Several of his accomplices faced similar charges. The pharmaceutical company involved was shut down, its executives indicted. But it wasn't just a legal victory. It was a human one. After the trial, Mrs. Calhoun approached Emma and Liam in the courthouse hallway. Her hands trembled as she reached for them. "She can rest now," she whispered. "You gave her justice." Tears streamed down her face as she pulled them into a trembling embrace. "I never thought anyone would care this much," she said, through sobs. "Thank you." "Thank you both." Liam held her gently. It was never just about exposing the crime. It was about remembering the people it hurt. Emma nodded, wiping her tears. She mattered. They all did. Outside the courthouse, a sea of reporters waited. But for once, the flashing camera didn't feel invasive. They felt like light breaking through a long night. Justice had come. Not perfectly, not painlessly, but it had come. And it meant that no one had suffered in vain. 1 year later, the rain had returned. But this time it was soft, cleansing, and full of promise. In a renovated wing of the old community clinic on Oak Ridge Avenue, streamers fluttered in the breeze. Chairs lined the sidewalk as volunteers in white and lavender shirts bustled around. They were setting up tables of pamphlets, medical supplies, and warm drinks. At the center of it all stood a sign hand-painted with care, "Emma's Light, a new hope for honest health care." Liam adjusted, his tie nervously, watching from the sidelines as the final preparations were made. The building, once neglected, now buzzed with life. Inside, patients already waited for checkups, consultations, and access to safe, affordable medication. For many, this was the first time in years they had been seen without judgment or cost. Emma stepped out of the main doors, her hair pulled into a soft bun. Her nurse's uniform was clean and crisp under a light raincoat. Her name badge now read Director of Care. She waved to one of the children in the crowd and handed a mother a warm blanket from the donation box. To the patients, she was more than a nurse. She was a symbol of what could be, right in a system that too often got it wrong. The clinic was built from the settlement funds of the lawsuit against the corrupt pharmaceutical company, matched by donations from across the country. People had seen her testimony, read Liam's reports, and rallied behind them. Doctors volunteered their time. Retired nurses returned to help. Even Liam's estranged father had quietly donated a wing under the foundation's name. As the ceremony began, Emma took the podium. Cameras rolled, but her voice was steady and full of warmth. "This isn't just a clinic," she said, looking around at the faces in the crowd. "This is a promise that no one, no matter how poor, how forgotten, how voiceless, will ever be treated as less than human. Again, applause followed, some teary, some joyful. When she stepped down, Liam walked up to the microphone, clutching something behind his back. Wasn't supposed to speak, he began, with a grin. But if you know me, you know I've never been good at following rules. The crowd laughed, softly. A year ago, I walked into a hospital pretending to be someone I wasn't. I had a mission, a plan, a purpose. But I didn't know I would meet someone who would change all of it. Someone who would remind me what kindness really looks like. He turned to Emma, his voice gentler now. She didn't just save patients. She saved me. And then in front of the patients who had regained hope, the mothers who had lost children and the friends they had made along the way, Liam dropped to one knee. The rain drizzled lightly, catching in his dark hair as he opened a small, simple box. Emma Hayes, he said, his voice breaking slightly. You were never just the nurse who pulled me out of the storm. You were the light that showed me who I could become. Will you marry me? Emma froze, her hands trembling as tears welled in her eyes. But she smiled through them, as radiant as the morning sun. She stepped forward, knelt down to his level, and whispered loud, enough for everyone to hear. You were never just a stranger in the rain. You were my miracle. The crowd erupted in cheers. Someone started crying. Another took a photo. But in that moment, all Emma saw was Liam, the man who once lied to her, then loved her enough to tell the truth. She kissed him gently in the rain, the way they had once embraced as strangers. And just like that, Emma's light became more than a clinic. It became a love story etched into the heart of a community. It was a reminder that sometimes healing begins not in medicine, but in the courage to care. And in the people who refuse to stop believing that even the darkest storms can lead to light. What began as a chance encounter became a journey of truth, redemption, and a love that changed countless lives. Emma's light continues to shine as a beacon of hope. It reminds us all that kindness is never wasted and that the most powerful stories often come from the most unexpected places. If this story of hope and redemption touched your heart, please show your support. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Soul Stirring Stories. We are dedicated to bringing you tales that heal the soul, awaken compassion, and remind us all of the beautiful power of being human. Thank you for watching. Until next time, keep your heart open and let your own light shine.